Downtown Timberlake in business since 1936. Please make welcome all the way from the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, a man that got up early and dressed appropriately for this time of the year. He even wore his Halloween mask with him today.
That's right. Don't look.
Please make welcome Mr. Carl Cantalupi.
And a happy Halloween to you. Well, it's the day before, I guess.
Well, that's right. So while we do wish everybody a happy and safe Halloween, and Carl, I must say, when you came in the station this morning, I was actually sitting in the lobby, and when you came in, it kind of startled me. So anyway, you've definitely got the Halloween effect.
And got the mask on
today. I'm just picking with you about that, but we are live in the studio today. If you've got a question for Carl, call 336-599-0266. Last week, we done the Gardeners Corner program from T.G. Brooks Company. Had a nice time out there. They are nice, friendly people. And last week, it was a lady that had called the station and asked a question, and the station actually sent me a message, but I did not get the message until after the show was over. So if the lady that was listening last week that had a question for the Gardeners Corner program, if she would call in today and re-ask her question, Carl will do his best to give her an accurate answer. But anyway, again, we are live in the studio today, 336-599-0266. Going to be talking about some things that you may be noticing in the landscape. Also, we'll be talking about some things that you may have already started noticing inside. If not, you may be noticing them in the near future. But Carl will get us cued in on several different things. But we're going to jump right in. And Carl, I believe you said you want to talk about septoria leaf spots on turnips.
Right. Actually, this is Cercospora leaf spot.
Okay.
But it's another fungus.
Okay.
And for the people that are viewing at home, they can see this on the screen. People are noticing these spots on turnip leaves now, and have been for the past few weeks, I guess. Here's another shot of it here in more in color. You see these brown, light brown spots that kind of coalesce together, and they just take over the leaf. And people think, well, what is this, and is it harmful? Can I still eat the turnip salad? And the answer is yes. It is a fungus that produces these spots, and it's due to high moisture conditions, early dews that we have, and it's caused by just the poor air circulation in the patch, especially when people scatter it and sow the seed. It comes up at a very close plant population. So you can pick these leaves and use them. They're not harmful at all. And by doing that, you'll increase the air circulation around the plants. One woman called in a few days ago and thought that this was a copper deficiency, and it's because she went on the internet and she saw something that looked like it, and it's not copper deficiency. It's just a leaf spot fungus disease that we get this time of the year. There's nothing much we could do about it. Some years it's worse than others. So just basically pick off the affected leaves, get rid of them or use them, and just try to encourage more air circulation among the planting.
Well, it is whenever you sow your turnip patch or whatever, it is kind of hard sometimes to not get it planted so very thick.
Right.
And but again, airflow would help it as much as anything. But don't be alarmed, and it's not harmful. And again, you call it what type of fungus?
It's Cercospora leaf spot. Unfortunately, this one,
okay.
this one doesn't have a common name. They just retain the Latin name. So Cercospora leaf spot of turnip. We also have Cercospora needle blight of asparagus. That's the one that turns the ferns yellow and brown prematurely.
Okay. Carl, here it is. You just will say the last of October. What is some things that people can be doing out in the landscape and gardening areas this time of the year?
All right. If you haven't done so already, you still have some time to control broadleaf weeds in the lawn by spraying either Speed Zone or Trimec. And then, you'll get good control of weeds that we call winter annuals. These are weeds like henbit and chickweed. And these get their start this time of the year, and if they're in the lawn now, they're very small. So if you spray them with Speed Zone or Trimec, they're very easily killed. And by doing that, you deny them the chance of overwintering. So if you don't control them now, they overwinter, and then in the spring, they're very, very large. And that's when we generally get the calls from people asking, well, what can I spray to control henbit and chickweed in my lawn in the spring? And the answer is absolutely nothing, because they're going to die anyway. Because the winter annuals, they'll die in the late spring, early summer. But before they do die, they scatter their seed, which will germinate in September. So now's the time to treat broadleaf weeds in the lawn with Speed Zone and Trimec.
And so if you treat them now, hopefully you will not have to worry about them next fall, but most likely you will still have some to come back. But now's a good time to go ahead and treat them. Now, Carl, as far as the garden goes, hopefully people maybe still have some things in the garden,
Yeah.
but if not, maybe they have kind of tilled the garden up. And if you are actually planning and raising things in a raised bed, as far as old tomato plants and things, just kind of get rid of them. Don't till them up into
Right.
the soil, and do not use your old tomato plants in your compost pile. If you can, send them to the landfill or dispose of them some other way than just using them for compost, because you could be inviting problems for next year. And speaking of composting, with all the leaves and things falling, Carl, I believe you had said that if you are putting a lot of leaves in a compost pile, it's a good idea to put a little bit of maybe 10-10-10 fertilizer in with it.
Right, that'll help speed the decomposition process.
Now, when using or having a compost pile, every so often, would it be good to go in there with maybe a pitchfork or a shovel
And
to
turn it.
kinda turn it and give it air a little bit?
Right, and you want to alternate the different organic materials you add to the compost pile. You want a layer of green materials such as grass clippings, and then a layer of dry materials such as chopped leaves, and then a few inches of soil, and then you might add some fertilizer on top of that, and this gets the pile start to cook. And you can tell when the compost pile is working very well, because the center of it, you can actually see some steam coming out the center.
Right.
So
Well, Carl, now, I have heard of people using eggshells and coffee grounds.
yeah, that's fine.
Another thing, that's okay to use in the compost pile.
Yeah, you don't want to use meats, because that tends to draw animals, and so you just stay clear of that. And another question people sometimes ask is, well, should I add any limestone to the compost? And the answer is no. As the compost is being made, the pH does tend to go down a little bit on the acidic side, but then once the compost process, the decomposition process is finished, the pH goes up again. So limestone really isn't needed.
So, but you could add a little bit of 10-10-10 or any fertilizer that you may already have on hand
That's right.
to go ahead and help speed up the the compost pile. Also, what about for people that's got cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, and collards planted? Would it be okay to maybe give them a little boost of
Yep.
nitrogen?
It sure would. Give them a little bit of nitrogen if you want to use something like Miracle Grow. You can water it in with that, or just sprinkle a light amount of 10-10-10 around the plants. If you get any on the leaves, just brush them off. Water it in good. Make sure they have ample water so that they can go ahead and produce a good size head of cabbage or stalks, flowers of broccoli.
Carl, we've got a caller.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and take care of that. Good morning. Thank you for calling the Gardener's Corner program.
Good morning to y'all, too. Question. I got a grapevine. When is a good time to cut it back? It's established, it's 5, 6 years old or older at least.
Yeah, late February, early March.
Late February, early March.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if I can just get my sister-in-law to be that patient.
Yeah,
Well,
don't get over anxious with the clippers,
Okay.
because if you prune now, then you'll get winter injury on what you leave behind.
Okay. Another question. Is this a good time to plant
Plant what?
grapevines?
Well, you probably won't find any because they're generally shipped from nurseries as dormant plants in the spring. Unless you buy them from a local nursery, if they're growing in a container, you can plant them anytime.
Okay, like anytime. I planted some this past weekend, so that's fine.
Oh, sure, that's fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Plant them anytime and wait till February, latter part of February to prune.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
That's right.
All right.
Hey,
Too much,
thank you.
and y'all have a blessed day.
Hey, you too.
You too.
Appreciate your call. Yeah, Carl, speaking of that, actually yesterday on the Old Farmer's Almanac radio report, they was talking about, the pruning of trees, and they were saying on there what you've been saying for years. If you prune your trees and things this time of the year, you're going to be inviting the opportunity for overwinter injury to occur. Now, it is certain varieties of trees that can be pruned. I believe you said up until about December. Is that correct, Carl?
Yeah, around the middle of December, we can actually prune elms, birches, and maples, and dogwoods. These trees are what we call the bleeders, and they'll tend to bleed sap. If we prune these trees at the normal time of the year, we prune other trees in late February or in early March. And so if you want to avoid the sap bleeding, which in and of itself doesn't hurt anything really, but it does have a tendency to attract insects, but prune elms, birches, and maples in mid-December, as well as dogwoods, and then you won't have the sap dripping.
Carl, back to what we were talking about. I think you had said last week out at T.G. Brooks Company that you've got some cabbage that is just about ready.
Yeah, it's just about ready, and I've already picked broccoli.
Oh, really? Great. So you enjoying some of that homegrown broccoli?
That's right. Uh-huh.
Whether you eat broccoli raw or steam it or whatever, I enjoy broccoli. I notice a lot of people probably turning their nose up at that, but I enjoy broccoli. I believe we have a caller.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for calling the Gardener's Corner program.
I wanted to ask about when is the best time to prune
When is the best time to prune what?
rose bushes.
It depends on what kind of roses you have. If you have roses that bloom all season long, the best time to prune them is in when they're dormant in February, or actually just wait until you start to see new growth appear. Then go ahead and prune them. Or if you have the kind of roses that just bloom once, and then they don't bloom for the remainder of the season, those roses you prune right after they finish blooming.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you.
for calling in.
Appreciate your call.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, with the roses, it depends, as Carla said, and you really have to kind of, just kind of be mindful of the two differences, because if you prune at the wrong time, you may be causing problems and not having, beautiful roses.
Yeah,
the following season. Carl, now here it is. We've got less than 1 month to still take advantage of the free soil sampling.
That's right. Yep.
Give us more information on that, if you would, please.
You have until right before Thanksgiving, I guess the day or so before Thanksgiving, to take soil samples and get them into the extension office so that we can send them down to NCDA before Thanksgiving, and you can still get your soil tests done for free. After Thanksgiving, up until March 31st, there is a $4 charge per sample, and this is done just to encourage people to get their samples in early so that they don't come all in at one time and cause a backlog, which at some times of the year we could have a 9-week turnaround time. So by doing this hopefully will greatly eliminates this.
Now, Carl, when someone is collecting the soil to do a soil sample, you want to go in, well, it depends on the size, feel, or whatever, but it's best to get soil from about 5 or 6 different places and kind of mix them all together in a pail, and make sure that the soil is free of any rocks or roots or any foreign matter.
That's right.
And you only need about a sandwich bag of soil to do the more or less soil sample test. And when you turn it in to the extension service, if you've got multiple soil samples that you're turning in, you need to kind of come up with some way of distinguishing the differences when they return your results. But a lot of times you'll find that the results are pretty much close on just about anything. But yet and still, I've said this many, many times, and I was never a believer of the soil sampling until we started doing soil samples. And I would certainly advise any unbelievers of what a soil sample can do for you. Try a few samples, collect a few samples, have them tested. And then on what you do not have tested, you just kind of give it a shot in the dark of ever how much fertilizer or lime or nitrogen you put on it. And then you get the results back of your soil samples, kind of go by what the Department of Agriculture suggests, and in the end, compare the two to see how well your shot in the dark turned out, compared to the soil sampling test that was done by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. And many, many times you could be over fertilizing or adding lime at a time when it's not really needed.
That's right.
And that's the purpose of the soil sampling. So take advantage of it again. You've got up until Thanksgiving for the free samples. After Thanksgiving until the end of March, it's a $4 per sample testing fee. So.
That's right.
All right, Carl.
We need to...
Well, we get a word on for one of our sponsors in just a minute. When I say one of our sponsors, our only sponsor today is T.G. Brooks Company, but we'll get a word on for them in just a minute. But I tell you, let's go ahead and get a word on for T.G. Brooks Company, and then we'll come back. And what do you want to talk about after the break, Carl?
Pruning grapes, actually, because the people are asking about it this time of the year, and I think it's a good time to explain the differences between pruning muscadines and bunch grapes.
Okay. All right, here we go. We'll take a trip out to T.G. Brooks Company.
Hey, the leaves are falling. It's October. Fall season is upon us. Warmer days, cooler nights. T.G. Brooks Company has your pansies too for fall beauty. It's still time to plant your turnip seed and also your kale, mustard, collards. And more importantly, it's time to sow the yard and do fall planting. There is no better time of the year to reseed and refeed your lawn. T.G. Brooks Company has plenty of advice and plenty of supplies too. Enrich your lawn and your yard with lime, fertilizer, grass seed, including the new Top Choice Turf Grass Seed for greener and plush lawns. Many people have been to T.G. Brooks and picked up or had delivered beautiful mulch, including some of the triple ground mulch, and they have mulch in several colors. It is also time to do some raking. Get your lawn rakes and your tools to do the work. No matter if you are the individual homeowner or you are the professional landscaper, T.G. Brooks Company gives the same courteous attention to everybody. Fall and this time of the year, also the time to check over your stovepipe needs and fitting needs. Also, they have your replacement parts for Taylor wood stoves like blowers, anode rods, rust inhibitors, chemicals, and pumps. Next month, we'll be celebrating Thanksgiving. Keep in mind, T.G. Brooks Company will have your Thanksgiving delicious, famous T.G. Brooks Country Ham. So plan now to put that on your shopping list for later on. From cast iron cookware to case pocket knives, from grocery needs to plumbing supplies to electrical supplies, they have it and have plenty of advice, especially for your lawn and garden. Don't forget to pick up hand-cut ribeyes. Take them home and pop them on the grill after a hard day's work in the yard. T.G. Brooks Company, thanking you for your business and looking forward to serving you. Phone 364-2428.
Okay, here we are back on the Gardener's Corner program, and anyway, we just had someone to call in a little bit ago and was asking a question about pruning grapes. Although it is not the time of the year to prune grapes, Carl is going to talk a little bit about how you go about pruning grapevines at the right time of the year and how to do so.
Right. Now we can grow two different kinds of grapes in North Carolina. We can grow the muscadine grapes and we can grow the bunch grapes. And just to get a little terminology out of the way here.
Now hold on a minute.
Okay.
Okay, couldn't you have a bunch of muscadine grapes?
A bunch of muscadines, yes.
Yeah.
This is true.
Oh, you mean the ones that grow in a bunch
Exactly.
and not really in a bunch?
The bunch grapes grow in a bunch. Muscadines tend to grow, well, singly, and they might make a small cluster, but they bear pretty much singly.
So if you had a bunch of bunch grapes, that means you've got a lot of bunch grapes.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
You confusing me, Carl.
Well, anyway, people tend to use the term muscadines and scuppernong interchangeably. Scuppernong is a variety of muscadine grape. It's a bronze-colored grape, but it's a muscadine grape, and scuppernong is a variety. And also, scuppernong is what we call a female flowered type. So if you plant scuppernongs and don't plant them with what we call a perfect flowered variety, a variety that has both male and female reproductive structures in the same flower, the scuppernongs will never bear grapes. And that actually, I was out to a place last week. The guy planted a whole bunch of scuppernongs, and he used to have some perfect flowered grapevines, but they died. So he's got the most beautiful scuppernong vines growing, but
With no
fruit.
grapes.
With no fruit.
Wow. Now, Carl, when you say a perfect flowering grape, what exactly
It has
is
both
that?
male and female reproductive structures within the same flower.
So would you ask for a perfect flowering grape?
Yes, you can, and the way to be assured of that is to deal with a nursery that specializes in growing muscadine grapes, and we have a list of those at the office. Okay, we need to go to the phone.
Well,
Well,
We lost that one for some reason. I
All
don't know
right.
if I didn't hit the button
Okay.
right or not. But anyway, so sorry about that.
All right, so anyway, yeah, Scuppernong is a female flowered type, along with Fry and Higgins, which are also female flower types. So you want to get a perfect flowered type, plant one close by. With muscadines, as you see in the picture here, the way we space them is we want to space the trunks or the shoots that when we plant about 20 feet apart. This allows for 10 feet of what we call arms. 10-foot arm in one direction and a 10-foot arm in the other directions. In other words, you train the shoot, the primary shoot or the trunk up to 5 feet tall. You have a wire at 5 feet, and then you let that shoot branch out in both directions, 10 feet on each side. Okay, and so if you look at the picture, you see the arms shown, and then you see little shoots coming off of the arms called spurs. Now, the spurs are where the fruit will come out of. And when you prune a muscadine grapevine, you prune them back so that you only have 1 to 2 buds left on a spur. And that's where the fruit will be. And then you go down the arm and you clip these little spurs to just maybe 1 to 3 buds. And then you eliminate everything else. Then the following year, you come back to that vine and you look for other shoots, other spurs that come out right at the arm. Because as those spurs grow and they produce fruit for you, they continue to grow from the end and not produce fruit. So the following year, what you're going to have is a longer spur. And you want to keep the growth of that spur very compact, close to the arm.
Okay.
So that you have production right there, and not have them, a mile down the road and up into the tree, because grapes only bear on last year's growth. So if you neglect to prune a grapevine, your bearing surface gets further and further away from the trunk. So this is why we want to prune grapes every year, and you can actually remove about 90%, that's 90% of all the fruiting wood and still have enough for a commercial crop on a muscadine vine.
Well, Carl, that is really interesting. Now, while we're talking about pruning grapes, maybe someone that is wanting to plant some grape vines early this spring, or they may already have some that they would like to plant. As far as a grape trellis or whatever you would call it, if you would give us a little bit of information about the best way to construct one of those.
Well, just as you see here in the picture, you've got it shows pressure treated posts. 8 feet tall. Put them about 3 feet into the soil, so you're left with 5 feet from the ground level to the top, and then you train your top wire. This is the best way to train grapes on, whether they be muscadine or bunch grapes. The thing not to build is an arbor. And I don't know why, but there are so many arbors that I see all over the place.
Yes, it sure
And all they're good for is aesthetics, because as the grapevine grows, you pick grapes only on last year's wood. So every year, you get more and more and more and more one-year-old wood that gets deposited right on top of that arbor. And then sooner or later, the whole thing breaks down, because who's going to climb on top of that arbor and prune?
Well, and it makes it harder to harvest the grapes
It is.
on an arbor. So
That's right.
so the trellis is the way to go.
That's right. Now, the other type of grape we have are bunch grapes. And as far as their bearing characteristics, they don't have female flower types like the muscadines do. They're all perfect flower types. So you can buy one grape, plant it by itself, and you can get a crop of grapes. So the bunch grapes, let's see, several different varieties here. The old ones that are seeded, Concord, Delaware, Catawba, Fredonia. Then we have seedless ones that have really done very well, especially at the trial I had a few years ago north of Oxford. The seedless types do very well. As far as pruning, they're pruned a little different than muscadines. With muscadines, as you remember, we retain 2 arms, one on each side, 10 feet in each direction. With bunch grapes, we don't retain the arms every year. We get rid of them and we renew them. So what you see here in the slide is a cane. We're using the cane terminology instead of the arm. So we start from the trunk and we count 8 to 10 buds away from the trunk, and we cut off that cane, and that's where the fruit is going to be produced. So then at the end of the year, I should say, as that cane is producing fruit for us this year, it's continuing to grow at the end vegetatively. So the next year, the grapes are going to be produced further along down that cane. And each year gets further and further and further away from the trunk. And again, until it gets a mile down the road or up into a tree. So in order to keep that bearing wood close to the trunk, the cane that you see in the picture here, one on either side, after that 8 to 10 bud cane produces fruit for us, let me back up a little bit. I always get ahead of myself. When we prune the cane back to 8 to 10 buds, we look on the trunk for another cane, and we prune that one back to 2 buds. That is called a renewal spur. That's what you see in the picture. So that when that 8 to 10 bud cane is producing fruit for us, the one that we cut back to 2 buds is growing vegetatively. So the following year, we can come back to the grapevine, prune off the 8 to 10 bud cane, and where the renewal spur used to be, you now have another shoot that will give you the fruit that year.
Okay. So with the bunch grapes, when you prune this year, you're almost setting up for the following year's harvest.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So you're doing this every year, and so this type of pruning is called a renewal system of pruning, because you're renewing the arms every year. The muscadines, you're leaving the arms, but you're pruning those arms, the shoots or the spurs that arise off of those arms. You're pruning those back to just 2 or 3 buds. With bunch grapes, we prune them back to 8 to 10 buds, because that's where the most fruitful buds are to produce the grape. If we prune these canes back to 1 or 2 buds, you won't get much production. If you leave more than 8 to 10 buds on that cane, it's just a drain on the vine. So that's why we prune them in that way. So once you understand it, and once somebody shows you how to do it, it becomes very, very easy. And so, it eliminates you having to go and hack away a vine after it gets overgrown. And of course, if you have to do that, it's not going to kill it, but if you remove all of last year's growth, that year you won't have any fruit. Yeah. So,
well, with all this being said, each and every year, Carl, normally late February, early March, has a couple of fruit tree pruning demonstrations.
That's right.
He usually has one for Person and one for Granville counties, and it's always on a Saturday morning. And I'm thinking it was this past spring that it was kind of wet and had to reschedule them a couple of times.
Yeah,
but,
that's right.
Anyway, it would be really good for you to go to one of the fruit tree pruning demonstrations, and let Carl show you the way that it is supposed to be done. And then from there on out, you can pretty much handle, your own pruning yourself.
That's right.
But anyway, a little bit of information about muscadine and bunch grapes, and so again, if you want to, maybe go ahead over the fall and winter months, you could maybe go ahead and start to build a grape trellis stay away from the arbors. The arbors are pretty and nice, but if you want it for
Fruit production.
fruit production, use the trellis, and go ahead and get your trellis, completed, and then when it's time to start ordering your grapevines, you'll be all set, ready to plant, and you can have grapes for a great number of years if you look after and tend to the grapevines.
That's right.
Going to change gears right now, and Carl is going to talk about some information to where anybody that maybe has flour, also maybe dog food, maybe you may have some other type of, maybe it's cornmeal or different things, that you may start experiencing some bugs in your home. And Carl is going to explain the reason that you may be seeing some of these different pests.
Right, and we call these cereal and pantry pests, not people that you want to put in the closet, but actually insects. Any coarse grains, oatmeal, grits, nuts, seeds, dried pet foods, candy bars, spices, cocoa, dried fruits or vegetables are suitable materials for the Indian meal moth development. We'll show a picture of what the Indian meal moth looks like. The larvae or the worm is on the left. The adult is on the right. Indian meal moth occurs throughout the U.S., and most household infestations originate from the inadvertent purchase of infested products. During warm months, localized movement of moths may also occur outdoors, resulting in household infestations. Because of the broad distribution of the insect, it's rarely possible to definitely establish the original source of a meal moth infestation unless it's detected at purchase. Eggs are laid by the adult moths near suitable foods, such as along cracks or folds of packages. The newly hatched larvae are very small and are capable of penetrating into loosely closed packaging. Upon reaching a suitable food, they begin to feed. Development can be rapid under favorable conditions, and the larvae ultimately reach a length of about 1/2 an inch. Pupation then occurs, after which the adult moths emerge. The adult female moths are then capable of laying 200 to 400 eggs during their lifetime of several weeks, and complete development of the Indian meal moth varies due to temperature and food, but typically requires at least a month to complete. So that's what it looks like. Here's another shot of the Indian meal moth adult. A dead giveaway as to you're going as knowing whether or not you're going to have problems with Indian meal moth is that if you go to a store and if you see large bags of dog food that have been there for a long time, and you see these tan-colored moths flying around the pet food aisle, you know that the products are infested with an Indian meal moth. So,
and the best way to safeguard against having them, don't buy large quantities of dog food or grits or any other thing that you may have in the pantry. Only buy enough supplies that you will use within a few weeks or maybe a month.
right.
And then replenish the supply, because with it sitting around, that kind of invites the Indian meal moth to come in and take up residence in your place.
Right. Then other products. Now flour products, usually the Indian meal moth does not infest. But beetles, such as this one called the confused flour beetle, and we also have the red flour beetle. And these are very, very tiny. Their size is about 1/8 of an inch, so they're real small, and they're very common pests that infest many flour mills, warehouses, and grocery stores. They also feed upon grain, beans, dried fruits, nuts, chocolate, and other foods in the house. The adult female may live for as long as 2 years, depositing 300 to 400 eggs. The mature larva is brownish white, has 6 legs, and is up to 13 millimeters long. And the life cycle requires 1 to 4 months when temperatures are favorable. So the flour beetles attacked milled grain products such as flour and cereals. These beetles often hitchhike into the house in infested flour and can build up into large populations on food accumulations in cabinet cracks and crevices and in furniture. So as far as control is concerned, it begins with the location of the infested food, then a thorough cleanup using a vacuum cleaner to get into the cracks and crevices will control this pest. We don't want to spray anything, around food products in the house. But the thing to do is just inspect your, when you buy the products and you start to use them, just inspect them. And I think some people have made recommendations that I think if you do have infested products, you can freeze them. And after a certain amount of time, the freezing will kill the larvae. So that's one method. And I don't know if you can microwave small quantities at one time,
Right.
as well. But the best thing to do is really, is just to check your products, and if you have them, just get rid of them, because in the absence of the product, either the flour or the cereal or the cornmeal, whatever it's infesting, in the absence of that food, the insect can't survive.
Well, and Carl, something to kind of relate it to just kind of drive it home a little bit. If you ever have any old tomatoes that's been sitting around on the counter, or maybe some bananas or any other kind of fruit, after a while, when the fruit starts to decay a little bit, you will have fruit flies.
Mm-hmm.
And one way to avoid fruit flies, use the fruit or the vegetable before it gets to that point.
That's right.
And while we're kind of talking about this, an excellent way to store your white potatoes is in the refrigerator. Talking about Irish potatoes, keep them in the refrigerator. They will last a long, long time. And if you keep your white potatoes in the refrigerator, you can extend the shelf life a long, long time. Now, sweet potatoes, not so much so. You need to keep the sweet potatoes in a place where it's dry, where it will not get too cold, because sweet potatoes do not like cold weather.
That's right.
Also, something else that Carl is told, when you go to the supermarket or farmer's market or wherever, and you buy some apples and you wonder, man, this is a fresh apple. Carl has a chart that he's went over here on the show before about how long some apples can be kept in cold storage, but along with that, they do something to kind of remove the oxygen or something like that.
Oh,
Carl?
okay, yeah. What Rob is speaking of is a very, very good point. Is called controlled atmosphere storage, where they reduce the amount of O2, oxygen, and they put carbon dioxide in there. And what this does, it holds the fruit in kind of like a suspended animation. So, and this is what they use. This is why we can get apples available almost 12 months out of the year now,
Right.
because of controlled atmosphere storage. And when they put apples into this type of storage, they seal it up, and they don't go in there again until they want to, use the whole storage. And so it's really amazing, because the apples are still at the same point as they were when they were put in storage.
It is interesting, but put your apples in the refrigerator. It's not going to hurt them or anything. But we're going to squeeze another word in for T.G. Brooks Company, and we'll be back after we take a trip to downtown Timberlake and stop in. They've been in business since 1936, and we'll wrap up the Gardeners Corner program after this trip to T.G. Brooks Company.
Hey, the leaves are falling. It's October. Fall season is upon us. Warmer days, cooler nights. T.G. Brooks Company has your pansies too for fall beauty. It's still time to plant your turnip seed and also your kale, mustard, collards. And more importantly, it's time to sow the yard and do fall planting. There is no better time of the year to reseed and refeed your lawn. T.G. Brooks Company has plenty of advice and plenty of supplies, too. Enrich your lawn and your yard with lime, fertilizer, grass seed, including the new Top Choice Turf Grass Seed for greener and plush lawns. Many people have been to T.G. Brooks and picked up or had delivered beautiful mulch, including some of the triple ground mulch, and they have mulch in several colors. It is also time to do some raking. Get your lawn rakes and your tools to do the work. No matter if you are the individual homeowner or you are the professional landscaper, T.G. Brooks Company gives the same courteous attention to everybody. Fall and this time of the year, also the time to check over your stovepipe needs and fitting needs. Also, they have your replacement parts for Taylor wood stoves like blowers, anode rods, rust inhibitors, chemicals, and pumps. Next month, we'll be celebrating Thanksgiving. Keep in mind, T.G. Brooks Company will have your Thanksgiving delicious, famous T.G. Brooks Country Ham. So plan now to put that on your shopping list for later on. From cast iron cookware to case pocket knives, from grocery needs to plumbing supplies to electrical supplies, they have it and have plenty of advice, especially for your lawn and garden. Don't forget to pick up hand-cut ribeyes. Take them home and pop them on the grill after a hard day's work in the yard. T.G. Brooks Company, thanking you for your business and looking forward to serving you. Phone 364-2428.
Okay, here we are back on the Gardener's Corner program. We're going to wrap it up, and Carl's going to touch on the topic of ladybugs, stink bugs, and other bugs.
Other troublesome insects. Box elder bugs, the Asian lady beetle, and stink bugs. People have been calling in and they've had infestations of them. And so the best way to control them is to keep them coming in to the house because they're looking for areas to hibernate. So a good product to use, the trade name is called Talstar, Talstar. And I believe that is bifenthrin is the active ingredient, and just spray it along the foundation of the house or down into the crawl spaces. Follow the label directions carefully, and that'll provide a pretty good barrier to prevent these insects from coming in, because the box elder bugs are red and black. They make their way into the house. They like to congregate on the south side of the buildings. And if you crush them, they'll leave a red stain on the carpet or the drapes. They're not harmful, but they're just a nuisance. The Asian lady beetles, the same thing. They're looking for places to come in. And the stink bugs. We have the common stink bug and the brown marmorated stink bugs. That is really causing more and more problems, especially for apple growers in the western part of the state.
So, again, use Talstar, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Spell it again, please.
Talstar.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you can spray that around the foundation, and that will help warn off any unwelcome visitors.
That's right.
Of the, what do you call them? The nuisance?
Yeah, nuisance insects, yeah. Unwanted, unwelcome guests, yes.
At this time, Carl and I would like to, again, wish everybody a safe Halloween. And remember, trick or treat for Roxborough and Person County. The hours are from 6 to 8 o'clock, I believe is what has been set by the Roxborough Police Department. But if you're out and about, driving around, watch out for the little trick-or-treaters. They may be more interested in getting the candy and treats more so than watching traffic. So please watch out for the young trick-or-treaters. Parents, accompany your children when they are out trick-or-treating, or have a supervising adult to help look after them. It's not a bad idea at all to have some type of reflective material on their costume.
Right.
And only go to houses that have the porch light on. If you go by a house that the front light is not on, don't go up to it.
Right.
They're not welcoming trick-or-treaters. Just move on to the next one that's got the porch light turned on. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I want to remind you of, we go back to standard time. That will be at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, November 1st. So daylight savings time ends at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. So we will actually turn our clocks back 1 hour.
Uh-huh.
So again, we will fall back 1 hour at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, November 1st. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. A special thanks to Mr. Carl Cantalupi
Thanks,
of
Rob.
the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service for coming in and sharing his knowledge. Appreciate what he does for us. Thanks to T.G. Brooks Company. We appreciate their support. Should you have the opportunity to send some business our way, let them know you appreciate their support here on the Gardener's Corner program. And keep in mind, they'll have those country hams coming in soon at T.G. Brooks Company. Thanks to Mr. David Ratchet Jr., as we know him by as Kilby, for operating the camera and getting us on the air each and every week. On behalf of everyone here at the radio station and myself, Rob Hall, we want to wish you and yours a happy and safe weekend. And thanks for tuning in.